while you're reading that, I see there's a quick comment which just has come through that someone mentioned to you that the 21 days has become 40 days. Inge, the issue there is that the 21 day, it depends on what you're talking about, because we've got different levels of feedback timers which are housed in our interactions with SARS. The first one is we have dates which are set in the Tax Administration Act. So that, for example, is our objections turnaround time frame. It's the appeals turnaround time frame. It's the ADR turnaround time frame. And those ones are not open for negotiation because they're written into the law. Everyone has to comply with them. And for the comment that was made earlier about, it's become more common that SARS just doesn't deal with us fairly, by the same token, they lost because they held to the same standard as the taxpayer, because there's also been cases of the taxpayers who've been disallowed objections and appeals and everything else because they didn't meet their required legislative turnaround timeframes as well. The problem is, though, that outside of objections, appeals, and the ADR, realistically, those are the three big ones. All the other dates which we generally deal with respect to SARS aren't legislated, but they are practiced with respect to the service level, with the service charter which SARS has issued, saying we expect our turnaround times to be X, Y, or Z, where we commit that we will do things within these days. The problem that we have there is that because it's not a legal requirement, it's not like with the Tax Administration Act, where we then can go and compel a Rule 30, a default ruling in terms of 35. I was suddenly going blank. What's the rule? The default ruling, yes, it is Rule 35, which says you didn't respond within the required timeframes, therefore I'm going to court to tell them, well, you didn't respond, therefore I must be right. Thank you. Can we move on? Because it's only a request. However, this is an area which, again, your RCBs and the tax ombudsman should be being informed of, because of the fact that they aren't meeting the deadlines that they put, and it's in the interest of procedural fairness that they stick to those. So please, if SARS is not meeting the 21 days and is using 40 days instead, that is something you should challenge. And especially if the written letter refers to 21 days and they've now gone and put it at 40 days instead, they actually have serious issues. I agree that SARS hasn't issued, hasn't always met the 21 days, right? The one thing I will ask, though, again, to double check with those 21 days is that there are definitely concerns with respect to the responses received to verification requests as to whether everything has actually been received. Plus, also, I have seen cases, and this is something which SARS needs to fix, no question from my side, where I've seen if you have a request for verification, you send the information through and it then gets escalated to audit, that the people who deal with the standard verification requests are not the same people who deal with the audit requests, and they can't always see the documents you submit. They have said they fixed most of those issues, but it still seems to be a problem, which then often means that you keep getting the same letter or non-completions because the person hasn't actually seen what they needed to see. All right. And this is something which has caused issues and consternation among taxpayers because they keep getting the same letter over and over and over and going, I don't know what else you want. Right. Ongoing concern, that's something which I think is just also where we should then, is that the call center should have detailed information on what the request on the nature of the new request is, if you want to go and ask those. But unfortunately, the best response I've found is if you're getting multiple letters asking for the same information. And yes, technically, it means if you get a letter of verification and a letter of audit, you technically need to upload the information twice, which I agree seems totally rubbish, but is where we are, is the best approach I've had is to actually go and make a tax practitioner appointment and to then go and speak with the tax practitioner and go and say, right, here's my 3 requests. Here's what I've uploaded. What is going on? Now, we've had, and I know that was one of the concerns that was also raised in the issue, we've had assurances that SARS has reviewed and fixed the issue of the online tax practitioner appointments. Okay. If you are again reaching an issue with not being able to get hold of a tax practitioner for a virtual or a telephonic appointment, and again, I can only talk here anecdotally. I don't know everyone's experience. I don't deal with every branch in South Africa. They have been working very well in my regions, but says, no, no, no. My issue with the appointments is not to go and say that you should be uploading the same docs. Is if you are getting the same request for like the 3rd or the 4th time, it generally means that there's a document or an issue that isn't just in the same documents that they are asking for, which is not coming through in the information. Could they disclose that better? So just Rena, to discuss that issue. I'm not saying that I think we should, after the 2nd letter, go and make an appointment. What I am saying, after we're getting the 3rd letter, there's clearly information they're asking for, which is not coming across, and there's a misunderstanding. And now I can either go and upload the same document again and go and bash my head against that brick wall, or I can go and make the appointment and go and say, you're clearly looking for something, tell me what it is. I've had quite a bit of success with call center appointments with respect to queries that weren't necessarily explained well in the letters. But most of the time, if you're getting repeated requests for this with the same letter, it's because there's information that they're looking for which is not coming through. Okay. Right. Coming back to this question with respect to Section 6 quat. Now, Section 6 quat, I have seen instances of where this isn't coming through properly or where the calculation isn't being done properly on the SARS tax return. Right. I have to admit that currently I find that this is generally a result of one of 3 issues. Okay. So far, I am yet to see that in the 2021 tax return, there's an actual calculation error in the tax return. But I am going to admit that, hell, stranger things have happened. And sometimes with coding, stuff goes funky. So it's possible your particular case found the bug. But what I'm asking for is if you have a Section 6 quat error, I'd want you to please check 3 things before you go and lodge the objection. Okay. The first item that you should always be checking for is that, now PowerPoint's giving me grief again, is are you sure that you've completed the return correctly? And now in this context, when I say completed the return correctly, I'm saying, are you sure that you've put in the full gross taxable income? Are you sure that you've put the foreign tax credit into the foreign tax credit field with the appropriate code? And have you checked the total other foreign tax credits together with this particular credit that you're planning on claiming? If you're 100% comfortable, you've done that correctly, then again, please escalate to your relative RCB. Alternatively, you can also escalate it via the queries issue that we've had here, and we can try and escalate those for you. All right. But what I was saying is these 3 common errors. The first one is the completion of the tax return. Okay. But the second thing comes in the actual calculation of the amount of the rebate. And the understanding of this can sometimes also influence how we complete the return. And it's to remember that for Section 6 quat, the amount of the rebate is equal to the amount of foreign tax payable on the amount in taxable income. So if we use a very simple example, you've got someone who receives interest income from a foreign bank account. Taxes of 1,000 Rand were withheld at source. You had bank charges of 1,000 Rand. What is the amount I can claim as 6 quat? So the first thing there is to remember that the amount of my rebate is going to be 9,500. Sorry, that my taxable income is going to be 9,500, but the amount of my rebate that I can actually claim is 950, not 1,000. Why? Because I'm not including 10,000 Rands worth of taxable income in my taxable income calculation. I'm only putting in 9,500. So I can only claim 6 quat on the amount that was actually included in taxable income. And this is most commonly the problem I see with Section 10102, where people go and say, oh, well, I earned 2 million Rands worth of foreign income. I had tax withheld at a flat rate of 20%. So therefore, when I go and do my Section 6 quat, I will take 2 million minus the 1.25, giving me the 750. Okay. Take out. From that, I then go and try and claim 6 quat of 400,000. Okay. This is something which is a fairly common misunderstanding and a fairly common error. Okay. In the case that you've done this correctly and it's been disclosed correctly, then in that case, then I would really recommend this needs to be escalated as an error in the return. Right. All I'm saying is I've also seen a lot of questions where if it's not being, where it hasn't been completed correctly. In that case, then Kelly, if you say that this was your question, then I'm presuming, all right, we would be able to, is if you can go and send me the calculations for that particular one together with the tax returns, then I'm happy to go and escalate that as an error on the tax return, because that is something that then shouldn't be happening. There's clearly something else going on in the background, which means that the calculation is not pulling through. Certainly not beyond the realm of possibility that there's errors on the tax return. There've been quite a few instances of errors in this year's tax return. All I'm asking is that before you go to an errors point of view, if you're happy with the calculation, all right, what I can do is after this is if you email the CPD address and ask them for my contact details, they'll send you my contact details. Okay. And I'm happy to escalate that for you. But I would just need the taxpayer number, so they have to be happy to have their return escalated, and I would need the details, of the individual. Okay, but happy to escalate it from that process. Okay, but as I say, just as a general point of view, it's something with something which we need to be sure we've done the first part correctly. Okay.